can adjourn. Testing. There you go. Very good. We'll call to order the regular meeting of Solvang City Council for August the 8th, 2016. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Deuce,
Present.
Jameson,
Here.
Skip,
Here.
Zimmerman,
Here.
Mayor Richardson.
Here. Ms. Jameson, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager's report.
Good evening. We do have two items to report tonight, good feeling items. Number one, we had a high school student from SYHS, Stephen Whites, complete his Eagle Scout project at HCA this past weekend. So we want to publicly thank him for that. He did some improvements down there. It was well over $1,000 in materials, plus about 200 man-hours. So I wanted to thank him for that. And number two, just today I met with a gentleman from Creekside about a possible tree lighting donation for the tree planter for this year's Yule Fest. So we're actually discussing it next week with the Parks and Recreation Commission.
The student that helped what kind of a project was that for him? Was that an Eagle project?
It was the Eagle Scout project.
Yeah, okay, that should be mentioned, I think, yeah.
What troop was he from, Fred?
I do not know the troop number. His name was Stephen Whites.
Okay, thanks.
I know it's local, but I don't know the number.
What was the project?
The project was to do some improvements over Area C just behind the playground. Part of it was putting in some fencing, which was suggested to us by our latest playground inspection.
Okay.
Keep the kids out of that roaring creek.
Oh, good
Yeah,
idea.
so that's actually two Eagle. Yeah, the Roaring Creek,
Yes.
right. That's actually two Eagle projects down there now. The first one was over there by the, right behind the old stables.
That actually makes three, because there was another one at the Park Host House.
Oh, okay, great.
Next is public communications, written or verbal. At this time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Now, Jeannie, this falls under the consent calendar, so if you'd like to come up and speak.
Okay, I'm a massage therapist, and I
A
understand.
little closer to the mic.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay.
Name?
Oh, I'm Jeannie Shelley, and I own Just Breathe Day Spa and a massage therapist. Been in the business, the beauty business, probably about 35, 40 years. I was a massage therapist about probably 15 years ago, started it with my daughter. I understand that you're grandfathering in a lot of us that have had our license for a long time in business, which I'm really appreciative too. But I wanted to bring it to your attention with the CAMTC, the company that is kind of heading this whole steer thing that's going on with the massage therapist. I talked with one of the council members, Beverly May, today and a month ago too as well, because at the time there are many massage therapists, and we go to school from 200 hours to 1,000 hours, depending on our direction of what we want to go with that type of massage therapy. Most of us are mothers and grandmothers, are young students that are trying to make a living. So we don't get a lot of money, so we don't go into lots of, education because of it. But it doesn't make our education any less. We have to take anatomy, we have to do so many hours of hands-on therapy, all kinds of stuff. So we really do. We spend 3 days a week for 3 or 4 months doing this, driving back and forth to school on top of keeping a regular job. So we really have worked hard for our licenses. I want to speak on behalf of some of the massage therapists that are going to have to go through some of this. When I got a hold of this company, I thought, well, I knew they were supposed to contact us and let us know that they were going to be grandfathering some people into it. One of the girls I worked for was fortunate enough to get into that. I had never heard of them, didn't even know who they were. So I was a little concerned with this, that, I've been in this business all this time and never had heard about them. They said they contacted everybody. Well, obviously they didn't contact me, and I can't imagine how many people did not get contact. In school, it's not required by them. We don't have to go to them in order to do this. I know the state hasn't required that just yet, because we opt for the 200 or 250 hours or 500 hours or 1,000 hours. it's your choice. You can go for state certification if you want to, depending on where you're taking your license. For most of us, it's just a home business, you know, a business like at the Chumash or over here at the river course, the Alisal, thank you. There, we're just moms. You know, a lot of us are just trying to make a living, and it's not to make it a big business. And my concern with this company, they are a nonprofit organization. They're not state certified yet, and they're not going to. When I talked to Beverly today, it's going to take a long time before they get to that point. But in the process, they are contacting every city that they can get a hold of and try to get you guys on board so that we are forced to have to, in our own cities, do this. Now, I understand the whole process of one bad apple makes it worse for the rest of us, and they are out there, and we're all against those type of facilities. But it's going to make it really hard for the ones that don't have the finances to go to the education to the level that everybody's wanting. I would have to go back and get probably approximately 225 more hours to qualify for this. Now, what I did do when I found out that the gal that I work with in my shop has got the certificate and was able to grandfather in, I went ahead on Beverly's request, said, well, maybe they'll grandfather you in, the city will do that for you. Well, I thought, well, maybe they'll grandfather me and them. Well, I spent my $150 for the application. I spent $40 for my photo. I went and got my fingerprints, sent all the information, and it cost me about $300 and some odd dollars by the time I got done with this. Well, I just found out this week, because I hadn't heard from them for like 60 days, that they are requiring me to take the test now. And I said, I'm 62 years old. I'm planning to retire hopefully at 65. But we'll see what happens with that. And I'm thinking, well, what about all these other people that are not going to get grandfathered in? So I called Beverly and said, why didn't I get grandfathered in? Well, they required it 4 years ago, and with all the people that were contacted. Well, fortunate, Fiona, the one that works with me, she got something in the mail. So she went and got her license, and she got grandfathered in. She didn't have to take the test. So now, for the ones that are just finding out about them, we have to take the test. And I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. You know, I'm not going back to school. I don't have the qualified 500 hours that this particular company is requiring for us. The schools don't require that.
Jeannie, are you talking about the California Massage Therapy Council?
Yeah, they are not state certified. They are a nonprofit organization. That's all they are. So, you know, it's something that you guys might want to look into, because they might be well known, but they are contacting every state they can. The only reason why that Beverly started this whole thing was that in her state, every year they are required to be fingerprinted, and they have to take an STD test to make sure that they're not contracting diseases or causing diseases. Well, they're not sleeping with a bunch of people. They're doing massage. But in her state, they kind of look at them that way. So she said she got tired of that, and she's my age. She's in her 60s, and she says, I wouldn't go do the state test for you right now. I said, but why won't you grandfather me in?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, we gave you guys the opportunity. I said, I never got contacted. So I said, that isn't fair, and if I'm not contacted, I know there's a ton of massage therapists that are going to be coming to you going, who are these people? So that's what I started doing, is looking into who these people are and why they're requiring that. They're trying to force the schools to have to set up with them, with a nonprofit organization that's not even with the state yet. Now, I was a licensed dental assistant. I had to take my state boards. I'm not all for education. I am a nail tech. I had to take a state license for that. So, now I know that massage is not quite there yet. They're not quite with the state yet. They kind of look at us like we're just the little people. But, one day they will have us take a state required test where we have to do that, just like dental assisting or nail techs or any of those small, where you can quickly get learn a trade and then go to work. And that's really what they are. You're learning a trade so you can go to work,
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have no other speaker slips for that, so we'll go on to the next item, which is the consent calendar.
No.
No, it isn't. It's the council comments and requests. Is there anybody?
didn't have your-
I'd like you to start with
You didn't have your nap today, did
Mr.
you?
Zimmerman.
Just want to welcome everybody tonight, and no further comment. Thank you.
Mr. Skid?
Two things tonight. First, I think we need to celebrate a centennial event. Kachuma Lake is now down over 100 feet.
and it is at 9.4% capacity, and comes out of the Santa Barbara County Hydrology Department. So, hey, we hit 100 on that one there. Unfortunately, it's the bad 100 to hit, but we did hit it. And if you want to see something interesting, go up to Kachuma, up by go through the lake, and go out towards the one point right where the campgrounds are, and you can see the pump that the city of Santa Barbara is going to use to pump water back into the Tecolote Tunnel, and take a look at all the power poles that are running down through the lake to get power to this pump. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but they are down to under right at 18,000 acre feet of water out of a possible capacity of 193,000 acre feet. So hey, see what happens. Pray for rain. The other item is I'd like to see if the city council might want to take a look at an idea that go out and investigate the possibility of seeing what we can do to get a hydrogen fueling station for the city of Solvang. Both Toyota and Honda are now selling hydrogen-powered vehicles in the state of California. There are a number of hydrogen fueling stations in the Los Angeles area, a number in the Bay Area. There is one in Santa Barbara, and then there is one over at Harris Ranch over on I-5. But they are going to be coming on, these hydrogen cars are going to be coming out more often. I know GM and Ford are both looking at fielding hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, and they are an upscale vehicle, similar to your Teslas and things like that. And a number of people who are concerned about the environment. The exhaust on a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle is water. So, there could be some possibilities of getting some grants from out both Santa Barbara APCD and possibly the California Air Resources Board. And I think we should maybe take a look and see about see if we can establish a hydrogen fueling facility in the city of Solvang. And that's my comments for the night.
Can we ask the staff to inquire into APCD about the requirements it would be before us to get a hydrogen fuel station? They're very expensive, I imagine.
Yeah, the staff will check into that.
Thank you.
They may report back offline, but they'll check into it.
That'll be fine. Mr. Deuce.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good report on Kachuma, down 100 feet. I talked to my good friend Don Pratt the other day, and I knew he lived up around Kachuma, grew up in the area. Turns out he grew up on the island, and his mom would send him down to the bridge, which is now out, with a pitchfork to catch steelhead. So that was back in the day. I think there's probably a pretty good fine for catching steelhead these days, especially with a pitchfork. But well, yeah, that maybe that helps. Yeah, it helps for salmon fishing up in Washington too. So last meeting, I brought something up, and that was a pedestrian bridge. It was suggested that maybe I wait until we had a full council to discuss that. So I will bring it up again. And this is mainly for your benefit, Joni, since everybody else heard it.
Okay, I watched the tape. I watched
You watched the tape.
I watched the DVD. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm kind of aware of it.
Okay. So, is there any interest, since everybody knows about it now?
Taking it way up. Creekside?
Moving it up further.
I guess my concern would be the easements that we'd have to get and what the cost would be if anybody. I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood, right? The bicycle riders riding through my neighborhood, and I don't know how the village not Village Collection, what are those?
Going through
Village
Creekside.
Lane.
The condos
Yeah,
over
the
there, how they
condos.
would feel about it, I don't know. I think you might, I need more information.
I could imagine that it would only be taking people that wanted to go that way, that most of the bicycle riders would continue down Mission, straight into town, rather than taking a detour to bypass the shopping center, for example.
And how many people actually use the bike path, serious bicyclists? Do they use the bike path, Karen?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say, we go straight through that intersection, straight down.
Right.
But it is very treacherous. So, I mean, I can think of, if there was a path, you might, if you were a tourist or not an experienced rider, you might take that path and go through the crosswalk areas and over the footbridge or the bridge that's proposed through Nielsen's area. But experienced riders, they just go straight down to Creekside.
Another thing I'm also thinking about is not necessarily the riders, but also people on foot. I see I used to see the high school's cross country team a lot, and possibly other classes up and down the path, from one end to the other. This could give them another area to go to up Alamo Pintado area.
I think if it were if it was directed towards pedestrians, you might get more use. I don't see bicyclists using it. I mean, I know too many people that just take their chances and go.
I think bicycles do better in traffic than pedestrians do, and I do see pedestrians going across the bridge, and I wouldn't. It doesn't look good. So it's something I brought up, and so I'm bringing it back again.
Okay, I guess my concern is that eventually there is going to be some kind of pedestrian way across that area whenever Caltrans decides to widen that bridge or whatever they're going to do.
We're
And
going to be meeting with Caltrans in a couple of weeks regarding that entire intersection and the bridge, and trying to convince them to accelerate the replacing of the bridge.
Right,
So-
and when the bridge is replaced, I think at that time, the pedestrian bicycle situation will be addressed.
Mhm.
And I just don't want to spend, I don't know where we'd find the money to do it.
Okay,
Is that it?
that's it.
Ms. Jamison?
Pardon me? Oh, my
Council
comments?
comments?
Oh, yes. I asked Lisa to put on the city website the latest Public Utilities Commission communication we had regarding area code 805. They're running out of numbers, so they're going to, I think, as I read it, they're going to allow all of us who are 805s to keep our 805s. So we don't have to worry about our business cards and our stationery and contacting all of the accounts that we have, that our telephone numbers are no longer 805, but ZZZ or whatever the number is going to be that they give us. And there, on the website, there are a list of meetings. There are a list of addresses that you can write to express your concerns. Maybe you have no concerns. I went through this in Marin County, and they didn't allow us to keep our area code number. They gave us new ones, and it was awful. So it costs everybody a boatload of money to change their stationery, their business cards, whatever else. So their billing tablets, everything. So it's on the website, so take a look, and if you want to make a comment, make a comment. They're asking for our comments.
Jim?
And one other thing,
Yes.
you have a comment about that?
Just a comment on that one. I know years ago, when they split the 805 area code into somebody else, we ended up getting some phone calls from people who were looking for some hay companies. But I know down in Los Angeles, they have a couple area codes where they have dual area codes. The worst part of it is, new people, if you want to call somebody across the street who's a new person, you may have to, you will have to dial the area code number to go all the way through.
Yeah, it's kind of
Which,
crazy.
so instead of dialing just 7 numbers, you're gonna have to dial 10 numbers, and probably 11, because you're gonna have to dial the 1 in the area code to get to it, but that is something that could happen, but hopefully we get to keep our 805 area code.
Well, there's a map and it shows you what they're considering, so take a look. My other comment, or you have another comment?
Well,
about it?
I was just gonna say, my understanding was that this is supposed to be an overlay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so, you know.
So the new numbers will have a different
Yeah,
area code.
yeah.
That's what Eddie's saying.
Yeah.
We'd have to dial
Yeah.
our
well,
neighbor across the street long distance.
Well, at least us old timers don't have to change anything.
Right, right. Okay, my second comment is, we lost a very fine gentleman last week. His name was Paul Burtness. Paul was a good-hearted, kind-souled gentleman. He loved his horses. He loved his wife and his family. And he was extremely artistic. And I'm going to miss him a lot. So here's to you, Paul.
Thank you for that. I have no comments. On item number 3, correspondence received, we haven't received any this week. Approval of the agenda is presented. Does anybody want to change the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to the council minutes of July 25th. If there's any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes, if not, going to have a motion.
I just have a question. I wasn't here. Do I have any rights to make comments and submit them? No.
In the minutes, no.
No, not to the minutes, on the item.
Sure.
Okay,
During your public comment?
You didn't abandon your free speech rights under the Constitution.
because
your
I
oath
was
of office.
absent.
Yes, you did.
Just because you went to Ohio.
Yeah, right. So when is that an appropriate time to do?
During your council comment time.
Is that when I should have done it?
I was,
You could do it any time as far as the city attorney is concerned. The mayor runs the meeting, subject to you guys
Okay, I would just
overruling.
prefer just to put them in writing and submit
you
them.
can
Can I
just
do
submit
that?
them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
going to have the second, or a motion on the council minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
Abstain.
4, 1, 0. On
No,
the consent
401.
agenda.
401.
On the consent agenda, does anybody want to pull any items off of that?
I just have a comment. I was reading through, obviously I was feeling very guilty about not having been here at the last meeting, so I was trying to be very thorough. I noticed that we shop out of town a lot. And it's not that we go to big box stores, but we go to communities nearby. So we are not getting the sales tax, and I can't imagine that the cost of the item is that much different. So I would like to encourage the people that buy things for the city, when they go to get a screw or whatever, that they shop locally, shop in Solvang. That's my
I
comment.
agree with that.
Okay.
I want to pull that item 1 on the consent agenda. Would you read that, please?
Item B?
Item B, yeah.
6B, second reading and proposed amendment to Title IV, Chapter 10, amending regulations for massage establishments.
Based on the public comment, I'm wondering if we're doing the right thing, leaning heavily on this California Massage Therapy Council, if they're not a recognized state-sponsored thing. Are there any other situations that you know of where a requirement is made for a nonprofit or another organization to allow somebody to get a license that isn't state-sponsored? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and there are probably many.
Are we, what I want to know is if we're doing,
There's probably lots of examples. The policy decision is still up to the council.
Yeah, but is it the right thing to do, is what I'm trying to think
I
of.
don't have a degree in that.
Sorry?
I don't have a degree in the right thing to do.
Jim, I can give you an example.
Okay.
Underwriter Laboratories. They do a lot of testing, they do a lot of certification for safety safety issues. Light fixtures is one of them. Municipalities, building codes, inspectors, they require a certification. Underwriter Laboratories is one of those. So that would be an instance where a private company, and I believe they're for profit,
Yeah.
does the certification, is one of the certifiers for governmental bodies.
Okay, well, that gives me an example I'm satisfied with. And with that, I'm through discussing that. So can I have a motion regarding the consent agenda that we, if there's nobody want to pull any other items?
I just have a comment. I don't think you can compare the two organizations.
I'm sorry?
I don't think you can compare the two organizations. What
Well,
Hans was
yeah.
talking about and what this lady was bringing up, I think they're worlds apart.
Okay. I'm willing to take another look at that, because there's a question in my mind about the goals and aims of this particular organization. Are they trying to are they for the good of the community, or are they for the good of themselves? Are they good for the good of the industry? Do I have any questions, any support on that?
I am, after listening to the public, I am a little bit leery of going ahead at this time. I'd like a little bit more information on the organization that is pushing this here. It's one of these things that, particularly if the facts are that they were, quote unquote, they were supposed to send out information to all massage therapists 4 years ago, and they didn't, and they're saying, okay, we missed you 4 years ago, tough luck now. And that's, I do have a concern on that one there. So I think maybe we need to get a little bit more information on the.
I would concur with that also. I just.
So can I, let's table this particular item and ask staff to give us some kind of a report or some kind of information regarding this council. Can I have a motion to table this item?
So
I'll
moved.
second
Is
it.
there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do you have marching orders?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other than that,
Thank you for your testimony,
Other
Jeannie.
than that, I move the
Thank you for that.
consent agenda.
I'm sorry?
I move the acceptance of the remainder of the consent agenda.
Yes.
I'll second it.
May I have a call to roll, please?
Councilmember Jameson,
Yes?
Deuce,
Yes.
Skiff,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yeah.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes. That passed with a 5-0. On to the regular agenda, item 7.
Item 7, live streaming of city council and planning commission meetings.
Staff report.
The council requested that staff look into the possibility of securing services to provide internet broadcasting of city council and planning commission meetings. We retained Silvio Amata for a proposal for the work. The proposal provides for live broadcasting via the internet and also on-demand capability to access archived meetings from a link on the city's website, using the establishment of a Solvang City TV online channel. There are 2 options in the proposal. One would be to provide a basic upgrade to our existing system, and it would require a new video production system and a new encoder, although we would use the existing equipment as well as the existing cameras. The full system upgrade option would consist of 2 new HD cameras, a video switcher, and an encoder, and the system would be a much better quality, as well as it could be used to act as the city's bulletin board and display running productions on the city channel. Then everything would be archived to the website as well, so that people could web stream the previous council meetings. It should be noted that the basic upgrade includes equipment that we would have to replace again if in a few years when we do a full upgrade that will eventually need to happen. The basic option is at a cost of $9,995, and the full system upgrade would be an additional $9,000 for a total cost of $18,995. Staff is looking for direction on the web streaming proposal and authorization of a budget adjustment.
Any questions to the staff report?
Not some, well, I think in your staff report, you do say that people will continue to be able to get the planning commission and the city council meetings on Comcast.
This will be in addition to Comcast. We do
Right.
think that our
We're not getting-
technical difficulties are finished, completed.
Okay, but I'm just saying they're going to be parallel. They're going to but one will
Correct.
just be the meetings and not have all the archives and the callback and everything on it,
That's correct.
correct? Okay.
Well, that was
I
gonna
just
be-
had somebody ask me that, like,
That was gonna be my question.
yeah,
so.
like, I don't have a computer. How am I going to watch the meetings? Whereas
You'd
now.
be lucky you don't.
Well, now, I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about this little old lady. I am a little old lady, wait a minute. But they were concerned that they were not gonna be able to get Comcast broadcast any more of the meetings, but we will.
Are there any other questions? We'll go to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to comment on it? Yes, Karen?
Good evening, Karen Waite, Solvang City resident, candidate for Solvang City Council. I just had a question regarding this. I think it's a wonderful idea. Is this something that you would be outsourcing, that you would take in bids for?
That was going to be my question.
I asked it.
Wait, well, I was going to wait till after public comment and bring that up.
We have not received other bids for the project.
Okay, I mean, the only reason I'm saying that is because, in the interest of tourism, and I've listened to our director of tourism come up here and speak about getting PR and information out there. So this really would be very much right up that alley where you would want to probably pull in bids for this and get the best product available that could put everything out there, maybe include even redesigning your city website, get it all done.
Considering we just redesigned the city's website, I don't know if we'll be looking at that, but that is a great suggestion, and the amount of the contract is not such that we do need to go out to a formal bid, but.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anyone else who wish make public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start? I'll ask the question. This is a proposal. Are there any other proposals out there that we don't know of? Could we, is there an opportunity that we can do a request for proposals? And then to take this item to bid, $20,000 is not necessarily pocket change. And I think that we should have some competitive bidding on this to get a right product at the right price, rather than one proposal.
That is in the city council purview. That is fine if you direct staff to move that direction. We used Mr. Mata due to the fact that he did a very good job for the city of Buellton on theirs.
You know, I can imagine this is a great presentation and a great idea, but still I think it'd be better in our best interest to get competitive bidding on it.
I don't think it's that complex to where the amount that we would save, if any, is worth prolonging this and turning it into more than what it is. I mean, what we're looking at here is really just basic stuff, and I don't know how much you can mark this up to where it just doesn't look like it's unreasonable, I guess.
I appreciate that, but I'm not very familiar with video equipment and that sort of thing, and I don't know how many of us are. and we're getting one proposal, that I'm wondering if it wouldn't be there may be other equipment that is as good or better for the same or different price.
I've seen us go out to bid for less. I think it's I think it's a fair way to do. This might be the best deal there, but I just think it's a fair way to do. Unless it was such a specialty that there would be very few bidders on it, and I don't think that's the case.
Any other comments?
My only comment is, if it goes to HD, I'm going to be glad that I'm off of the city council.
I just have one. I trust the staff on their decision to do this, so if I think that they would know and advise otherwise if they thought this was out of the spectrum.
Is that a motion?
To, yes, move forward with staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second for voting purposes.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Zimmerman,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes?
Deuce,
No?
Skit,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
No. That passed with a 3-2 vote. On to item next, item 8.
Can I get clarification on which option you are approving?
Which option was the motion for?
Well, it's for the full
Full
thing,
vote.
HD cameras and all the whole thing.
I agree.
All right,
So do I.
option 2.
Option 2. See, we could have asked him questions.
Well, I asked for comment.
Well, he didn't have comments. You should have asked him.
I didn't know who was here to represent it.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do item 8, status update on the sphere of influence annexation study. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. The council discussed the possible study for sphere of influence and annexation in both February and October of last year, and council has asked for the item to be scheduled for a status update and further discussion. Staff had received 2 proposals to prepare a sphere of influence study for both sphere of influence amendment and annexation. The study includes what the staff feels is a very important economic impact analysis. And when council had added several parcels in October, it did bring the cost up to approximately $50,000. Obviously, we don't have a contract for that yet, but I spoke with a consultant today, and he says that's a good estimate. What we had done at council's direction is sent a letter out. There's a sample of it in your packet to the defined parcels that the council was interested in surveying whether or not the property owners wanted to be included. I've attached a table to your staff report which shows you it ties to the map numbers, and it shows you which parties are interested and which parties are not interested and who has not responded. If there's no response, we did not get the letter back. I indicated if it was returned to sender, so that means that it has been received and we haven't gotten any comment. So this is basically just for your discussion and to provide direction to the staff tonight. Again, the cost has risen to $50,000 with the additional parcels. And one thing I did want to mention, as council's aware, I am retiring at the end of the year, and this is going to be probably a multi-year project from the study to pursuit of any annexation or sphere of influence amendment, and it may be in the city's best interest to wait until my successor could initiate the project and see it through. So I have the maps on the slideshow that I'll put up in a moment so that you can refer to them if you'd like, and we're just waiting council direction. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
I just have a question about one of the people that did not respond, one of the parties that did not respond, and that is Valley Improvement Company. Can you give me an owner's name?
This is directly from the tax roll. So that is the owner listed on the tax roll.
Well, I don't think that that's, how recent is that?
Our rolls are updated every month.
Because that's the people that used to own it.
Yeah, I can look again, but that was the
Okay.
latest what was on there.
Okay.
Here's the first map with the first several parcels, so at this point, we'll turn it back to council. My staff report's finished, so I'm
Okay.
available for questions. And
Any
as I
questions
said,
for
these,
the-
here are the maps, just
for the
in case
map?
they're helpful.
No questions of staff report?
Do the properties have to be contiguous to one another?
The short answer would be yes. Sometimes you can come up with goofy, like gerrymandering ways of running city limit lines down the road and things like that, but generally speaking, yes.
So if the Peterson properties, number 6, 8, 3, 4, say no, that means we can't take in 1, 2, and 7. Is that right?
That would be correct. I mean, theoretically, it's possible to annex property over some people's objections, but generally speaking, that's the correct answer.
The two parcels just north of 1 and 2, I was under the understanding that was part of, at least one of those parcels was under the, part of the Croc property. Tom LaPlay is here. Could he address that?
Sure.
Tom LaPlay, and yeah, the two parcels, may I go here, should be included. But the very fact is, this is on the bluff, that's both Croc properties. Service used to be serviced by the well down there. If they make a deal, proposal with you, they want to use that water for those also.
And those two.
So they should be included. And
Those,
you see, this is your city line right here, going down, so it would be.
those two are they on the flat or are they on the hillside?
They're up above the.
The source of water would be coming from down below.
Oh.
The city takes it, that's on the county. Creates a problem.
But that also solves the problem, because the one parcel is adjacent to a city line.
Right, number 3.
No.
No, the ones that aren't.
Where
Oh, the one
number
above
where
3.
number 3 is.
Where number 3
Yeah,
is.
it's right here. Here's the property line, and then it goes down here. So you are contiguous there, just not on this little road, I believe. But so this is contiguous, and then that one's contiguous with that. And this is the crop property here, 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 here. 1, 2, 5.
And then A and B. We can call them A and B, the ones that aren't included. Okay.
One sub A and 2 sub A.
Maybe we should go back to the drawing board and add those two pieces in. Would they go along with the response from 1 and 2, include in the study?
We thought those were included.
Okay.
When I signed it, because that's where I thought it was.
So that we could add those without too much difficulty. We have a verbal.
And I can sign it.
I was under the understanding it was all or none, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Any other comments?
Who owns
I have a
5?
question.
Who owns 5?
how come we're stopping at that line? And if we're going to annex, why not annex up to the city limit of Buellton? Is there, I mean, is it much of a,
It's kind of like an agreement, we wouldn't do that.
or how, what is the deal with that? Is it war?
There is currently in place a non-legally binding understanding between Buellton and Solvang to not annex towards each other, to preserve the open space. And that's been the policy for at least the last 20 years. At one point in time, there was an actual written agreement, but I think everybody understands now that
is
that's not
this-
an actual binding thing.
So would this be the most contentious property? If it's the open,
I don't know, because I can't speak for Buellton and what would upset the city of Buellton.
gotcha.
I'd be inclined to just leave it where it is, to where we suggested out on the flats and those sorts of things, where we could have a hand at improving that during annexation.
I feel that that the green belt is important, and if we were to try to annex that, I think what county would want for it would make it prohibitive to try to annex that.
What are we annexing?
Well, if we were to try to go across the flats,
No.
it would be prohibitive to because I feel that green belt, the trees, that needs to be left as it is. I would hate to see that fully developed all the way across there by anybody, really.
Okay, I think there are two ways to look at sphere of influences and annexation. One is to develop, one is to protect. And I look at part of this as a protection of us, not that we're going to develop all that property. That's my opinion. And I don't think the landowners across the flats would stand for it.
Well, the thing about it is, what are we trying to do with this proposal? Are we trying to protect ourselves and have a green space between us and Buellton? Or are we looking at something for a future development for expansion of the city of Solvang? If we're looking at for an expansion of Solvang and we annex it, if we propose the annexation, my major concern is looking what happened to the city of Goleta when they became a city. The county said, okay, you can become a city, but we are going to require that you give up a substantial portion of your property tax value on those pieces of property. I can see right now the parcels 1, 2, 5, and A and B would be a fairly substantial amount of property tax as it sits right now. I don't know if it's set up in a Williamson Act situation or not, but even if it's an Williamson Act, it's going to have a lower property tax value. But if it's not, it probably has a fairly substantial property tax value. If we annex it into the city of Solvang, that is going to give it, at that point there, 1, 2, 5, 7, and A and B is going to be a substantial amount that the city will really not be getting reimbursed for, but will be responsible for providing services in one way or another. Any development would be coming from whoever would develop those pieces of property, but we would still have to provide the infrastructure to provide sufficient water and sufficient sewer for those pieces of property. And that actually goes on the pieces on the east side of Solvang also. So what is if we want to protect our green belt, I would say a better course of action would be to modify our general plan so we can expand our sphere of influence out to cover those pieces of property and have more of an influence in regards to the county than to do the actual annexation.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know that we have to do both. Do we have to do both?
No, you do not.
We have to start with the sphere of influence.
Right.
Right. And for the sphere of influence, and to start the sphere of influence, I believe we have to change our general
Yes,
plan.
you
We're-
would,
we're-
regardless.
Regardless. So it's like,
Regardless of any of these steps, you'd have to change your general plan, because the general plan doesn't contemplate taking the sphere of influence out that far. And I don't want you to, this is one of those things where the English language words and the actual legal effect don't match. And we all call it a sphere of influence, but you can include it in your sphere of influence, and even if that's approved, you actually don't have any legal influence over what happens there. The county is still 100% in charge. So whatever jurisdiction a lot is in, that jurisdiction has 100%. Now, politically speaking, the county may be more interested in listening, but it doesn't give you any, the city of Solvang as such, any more legal control over the property. LAFCO generally considers sphere of influence to mean that will be the ultimate physical boundaries of your city. So although you're not legally required to begin an annexation process immediately or even very soon after a sphere of influence is created, the way LAFCO will analyze it is that a logical place for the ultimate physical boundaries of the city to go? And in order to get the sphere of influence approved, you have to have evidence in the record to that effect. So it's best at this point in time to think about, if you're going to think about sphere of influence, and yes, you should think 20, 30 years down the road. That's what these concepts are for. But is it because in 20 or 30 years it might be a good idea to have that in the city limit boundaries? If so, then sphere of influence is the way to go.
now the next comment I'm going to make is that if we do the annexation with the idea of giving a greenbelt protection, not allowing a major development there, at that point there, as our esteemed attorney has mentioned many times before, that anything we do can be changed by any future city council by changing the rules and what they feel is correct for the city. So
That's correct, and if what I'm about to say sounds like it's a criticism of anybody from the Kochs, it's not. But if I owned that property and I was going to have to decide how I was going to vote on a majority protest situation, what's in it for me to vote for annexation if I'm just going to be greenbelt? Because my property, that's going to devalue my property, not in a legal sense, but in a practical sense. So if I own the property, other than someone offering me money to buy it, to preserve it as a green belt, my analysis is going to be, how does it affect my property rights? And that's how I'm going to vote in the majority protest. Each individual lot doesn't get a veto, but there is a voting procedure involved in annexations anyway.
Let's go to the public for public comment.
I just have one question for Arlene. Arlene, isn't there a little jet out point in parcel 7 or 8 that is in the sphere of influence already?
There is one someplace, I can't remember.
And it's right, it's there. It's
I
on the,
think
it's on the Petersons' property.
it's where
You're
gone
right, there
through
is a
that.
portion of it that's in
Yeah, okay.
Then I don't have any speaker slips for this to go to the public. Is there any public comment on this particular item? Tom?
In that report for your, I believe I read it correctly, that it wants to, if it is annexed, you want to do some commercial and additional industrial on the lower part of 5, I guess, and some parts of 1 and 2, just to do some commercial. And I'm just commenting on this, not saying that this is true. And also, we have the best well on
That's
the
right.
corridor right there. That was a benefit to the city. And if you have that and you do this, it puts you back in the running, for someone said it before, as people to shop locally and not going to Buellton. Buellton's been way out in front of everybody on their development, and they've done a good job. So if you did a master plan on this part for the city, it would be a windfall for you, I think, and for the people that own it. But I know it's way down the road, but that's the main, I think, objective for that. And the reason why you don't want the rest is because it's all developed in horse property, cattle property, and that's your green belt.
Yeah.
I don't think they get much tax on this because it was inherited, and it has a low base. I can give you those figures, so I don't think this county.
When the county writes it, they get a percentage of the tax in
Doesn't matter.
wherever.
Okay, all right. Well, that was just my thing. The way I read the report anyway, I thought it was a good idea that you know, because Solvang is missing out on having light industrial, feeder businesses, Trader Joe's. I mean, they're the size that would come into the city too. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm not really promoting it. I'm just telling you that I liked your idea.
That's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion.
Are we not going to talk about the other?
Well, we could do that now after public comment.
I think I'd like to address the tax issue, just so I make sure everybody has the same understanding, and people perhaps listening or watching and the public do too, which is that the way the law is written, when you annex property, the county can mandate that they get a certain portion of the property taxes beyond what they would normally get. So even though your property taxes will go up on annexed property that is developed, the county's going to get
The lion's share.
a big share of that. And although the code says you negotiate with the county, what negotiation means in this sense is we go ask the county, please, and they say no.
Right.
They mandate what the share of property tax is in. Most often, just rule of thumbs on annexations is that when you annex property, the amount of property tax you're going to receive, given that fact, is not going to pay for the costs of serving the property. Now, Solvang's in a slightly different position than just most anybody, so I'm not saying they automatically, oh my, you can't annex property because it's going to cost something. And I'm not, I don't have a agree on what's fair and right, and I'm also not a finance person. I just happen to have seen these things. Solvang is different. Number one, Solvang has healthy reserves because it has a healthy general fund and a general overall good tax base. Not every individual lot in town pays property taxes that covers all the costs of their service either. So Solvang's a leg up on most other cities when it comes to absorbing that kind of expense if annexation's a good idea. Also, two of the biggest costs that you normally associate with annexation is having to provide police and fire. And because you already have a contract for police services with the sheriff department, and because your fire department is through a county fire district and not through the city general fund, I can't put a dollar figure on it, but I'm sure that the same fear of increased costs doesn't apply. I doubt you would have part of what you do is a fiscal analysis. So I doubt that it comes back and says that annexation would pay for its own costs in terms of the taxes and services, but it isn't going to be like most other places because this is a unique community, which you guys all knew better than I did.
It seems to me that Lompoc just annexed 10 acres or something like that, and they got to keep 11% of the property tax. That the county took the balance. It was a really draconian amount. It was awful.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of what Arlene said about her term in office is coming to an end, and she's suggesting that we postpone the discussion of this sphere of influence until the new person takes over, so there's a continuous string, so there's no retraining.
Isn't it just kind of a formality thing, though? I mean, and we have some of our sphere that's already been recognized.
No, if you're looking at expanding the sphere, this is going to be, it's going to be a drawn-out, complicated process. If council wishes, I'm happy to start the RFP process or something, and, maybe we could leave a clean breaking point for the next person. I'm happy to do that if you'd like.
To start the study, is that what you're saying?
Well, I could circulate the RFP if you'd like, gather proposals. I just wanted to make you aware that I'm happy to do whatever council would like me to do.
I appreciate it.
I would like to see some kind of forward motion. If it's something as simple as including A and B and start an RFP on it.
Maybe follow up on the no response.
The problem with following
properties.
up on the no response is that the tax assessor does not have emails or telephone numbers. The only way to communicate with these folks is through the mail. Some of the agencies did take months to get back to me because the paperwork filtered from desk to desk until it found the correct person.
Would it be possible to pay a personal visit to these properties to see if there's anybody there that,
There's nobody there.
There's nobody there.
it's all fields, huh?
Yeah, I'll go on a road trip. Many of them are not local.
No, what I mean is that.
They're also
Oh,
all
vacant.
basically vacant.
Okay.
The other, I think, what we really need to decide is what we really want to do. Do we want to annex, or do we want to just include our, expand our sphere of influence? Because the way I understand it right now, Solvang's current quote-unquote sphere of influence is strictly the city limits of the city of Solvang.
No, it includes Janet Acres. On this area, there is, Councilmember Jameson is correct, there is a portion of parcel 8 which is included. On the other side, when we get there, Janet Acres.
Janet Acres.
And then it heads north on 246. That all is currently in our sphere.
Okay.
What I'd like to see that we end up doing, and this is looking down the road a number of years, is to make sure that we're protecting our gateways, if nothing else. We know right now the county's not going to develop just because of how county works right now. We don't know what county from 30 years from now will do. There could be shopping centers out there that we don't know about that is not necessarily conducive to Solvang, to our image, the image we want to project. It could be another little Danish village that's siphoning off our visitors. They're grabbing them first. That's why I think we need to get the sphere of influence out there to protect our borders and to give us future opportunities. I'm of course looking at the west, but the same thing goes with to the east and to the northeast. We can't see out in the future 20, 30, 40 years. There could be development in all these areas allowed by county that's currently under county jurisdiction that we have no control over. Yeah, I know that we're going to lose a lot of property tax, but is there other ways to make up for that? I believe there is. So that's why, this is why I brought it up. I was specifically looking at the western portion for a number of reasons, for water, for protecting borders, protecting our gateway. We talk about the green belt. To me, the green belt starts and ends with the trees, the ranches. Also to the east and to the north up Alamo Pintado. Again, we're protecting our borders, protecting our gateway in. That we have to say what happens right next to a residential area or a park. I think that's important.
To move forward, what do you propose, considering what Arlene was suggesting about
Well,
continuity?
yeah, I agree that I don't want to get too deep into it, especially with Arlene a few months, 5 months out. But I think there are things that can be done.
What I could do, if council would like me to do so, I could write up the scope of work and I could prepare an RFP. That does take some time. Get a consultant list together and maybe send it out. The only thing is, if you're not ready to proceed, the proposals will become stale, and then you'll have to redo the request for proposals. So I know that our city manager is hoping to have my successor on board before the end of the year, so we have some transition time. So it could be that I could get it ready to drop in the mail when the new person starts.
For the new person to get,
Yes.
I think that's an appropriate.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, and then make sure that we get A and B on this list.
I'd like to get your input also on the other two areas. I put up the second map. Just make sure that I've got all the parcels correct.
Yeah. Do we need a motion?
Oh, we got one here.
No, if staff feels they've got sufficient direction, because you're not authorizing an expenditure, you don't need to do a budget allocation at this point in time.
Okay.
Because the RFP can go out, and when the contracts come back, that's when you'd have to make those decisions.
So, the question I'm gonna have is on the parcels that are 18 and 19.
Done in.
And that is, that 19 is state park property, and 18 is a portion of the mission property. And
I wonder why we have to worry about putting the state properties in a sphere of influence.
yeah, that's because the only thing I could think of is that unless somebody's would be playing the future to move further east on the properties that are off of Ranch Road, and which are very large ag properties right now, but who knows what people, like you said, in 30 years, who knows what's going to be going on. I know when I go up to Lake Tahoe, and I go up Interstate 5, about 5 miles north of Kettleman City, I go through a sign that says the city limits sign of Avenel. And Avenel probably is 10 to 15 miles away from that sign. It's out in the middle of nowhere. And the other place is up by, up on Interstate 80, up by Truckee. Truckee has their city limits sign probably 5 miles to the east of the city of Truckee, up by the agricultural inspection station. They have their, so it's one of these things that some of these towns have absolutely huge footprints for the size of the city. And it's one of these things. I'm not sure if I want to go that direction or not, but that would be one of the things. And I'm going to say that maybe we actually have Arlene go out and arrange the RFPs and send them out and get the proposals back. And even if we don't do anything, it gives us we get a stale number. We will have at least a ballpark figure of what we're going to be the city will be looking at if they want to proceed with that. And it may be yes, maybe no, but.
And bear in mind that in some ways we're talking now about a fiscal analysis.
Yes, this number includes a fiscal analysis, and the estimate, and I feel pretty good about it. I've done enough of these type of things and worked with consultants that I think the 50,000 is a good range. That does include the fiscal analysis that would be done by an economist that does this type of work, and I think that's a crucial element of this study that will give you the information on exactly where the numbers fall on the revenue gap.
So Arlene has mentioned that it would be a lengthy multi-year process. There would be many chances to spend lots of money
Right.
during that lengthy multi-year process, because if you keep proceeding, you're going to have environmental reviews and things like that. So it isn't a $50,000 buys you
Everything.
everything.
No, I know, I
50,000.
realize that, yeah, it's just the first bite. And I, for one, would like to wait for that first bite to come down after we have a new planning director. Would ask her to set up the function and then get it ready to go out to RFP for the study. Okay? Everybody satisfied?
And that includes the stuff to the east, basically everything we're going to include in the study, correct? Is that what we're talking?
What I'm hearing is all
Janet
night.
Acres and all of it, right?
From
No,
one
Janet Acres is already in our sphere.
Right, but the fiscal study, isn't that something, I read in here that there would be an additional cost and,
Yeah, we can include Janet Acres in the fiscal study if you'd like, but the more property you include, the cost is going to go up. So
That might not be a bad idea to include.
just get it
Yeah.
all done, see where we really stand.
exactly, use the economy of scale.
Hmm.
Well, there's an additional reason for including places like Janet Acres that are already in your sphere of influence. And that is one of the pressures you're going to receive in the next couple of decades will be expanding the sewer plant to
Right,
be a
sewer
regional
plant
plant
and
as opposed to
water.
what it is now. And the State Water Board, because I've seen them do this in other places with a similarly sized plant near other areas that are going to be in trouble. And then the state comes in and tries to make the city take over for the whole sewer plant. And the state doesn't care that you don't get property taxes when you annex it because they're
Mm.
concerned about water quality. But yeah, that's coming, but that's even more of a reason to include it now.
Should we include Janet Acres and then there's portions of Quail Valley? How would
Yeah.
council like to handle notice to those people, those property owners?
Janet Acres and what?
It goes north of 246 in Quail Valley.
Quail Valley area.
Oh, Quail Valley?
Mm-hmm.
Don't we have a map of that someplace close?
I did not bring one tonight.
Yeah, it is on the map too that has 10 through 17.
But it
Are you
doesn't-
suggesting more of like a workshop and involvement that way versus like a
don't they have
general
to be
letter?
notified legally?
Not
Yeah.
of a fiscal study.
A fiscal study?
Yeah, that's all, the type of study you're authorizing, well, you're authorizing an RFP for is a more limited fiscal analysis of what annexation might eventually do for the city's budget. And so it's not the type of step where you have to give notice to property owners or get permission. Now, that doesn't mean communication's not a good idea, it's just not legally mandated.
Well, they're already in the sphere,
Yes.
so,
Yeah,
okay.
the reason I bring that up is annexation tends to be kind of an emotional issue. And sometimes if property owners hear there's discussion about annexing their property, they tend to get concerned and want information, which is fair. So that's why I'm bringing up the question of notice to those folks.
I guess a general notice stating that there's a fiscal analysis being done for potential annexation isn't a bad idea to at least see what kind of response we get now, right?
Yep. My concern is if we start doing Quail Valley, then you're basically doing all of San Ynez Oaks. Because that is one large development all the way through that goes all the way over to Refugio. And then we,
It's gonna become,
that becomes a
Wait.
furball.
yeah.
So I don't know if we want to
Okay.
go that far. You know, I'd be leery of going that far.
Just, Mr. Mayor, our city attorney and I have a recommendation for you to consider. Why don't we take what you've given us tonight? I'll write up the RFP, I'll develop a consultant list, we'll get it ready to go, and I'll bring it back to you with the maps of the sphere of influence and, you know, close-ups of Janin Acres, Quail Valley, and you can take one more look at it, and that way maybe you'll have a little bit of time to consider and we can decide how to proceed. Does that sound
That sounds like a good idea. I bet.
reasonable? Okay. That way we'll get that step going and you can make kind of the final decision and it'll be ready to go.
Okay. Any other questions? That one's done, right? The council member reports. I was out of sorts last meeting. I did have a meeting minutes I should have talked about, and you all got copies of that SBCAG report. If you've read that, is there any questions about the report? Then I won't go over this. Are there any other committees? None? Calendar, is that it? Well, with that, then we'll adjourn.
You'll make it.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. You got $20 you wanna get? I'll play poker for